Okay, can everybody see the screen?
Yes, we can see it. I don't know if you want to do the PowerPoint presentation style, but we can like slideshow. I think if you go to the slideshow heading and start presentation.
Let's see, because I wanted to go through each of this. This is, again, new to the, I'm used to
From
have
beginning, maybe.
from the
On the far
beginning.
left.
Oh, okay, hey.
There we go. We got it now.
I am still learning. Okay. And yeah. So as Katie said, thank you, Katie. Yeah. So I do teach a class at EMU, and it's law and the African American experience. And I've taught the class 3 times, and I'm a people person. I like to be in person and talk. And so we were doing that last March, and then the pandemic hit, and then we went virtual. And so it's been a big adjustment. I was doing lecture videos, and and then we did it in the fall too, where I was having classes, like 3-hour classes on Zoom. And it was interesting though, the kids were really engaged, especially in the fall. And so in the class, what we do is we talk about 1619, and we bring it all the way up to the present. And we use the Higginbotham book on race law. So we'll go through the case law, and we just talk about the Black experience in the class. And for me, I'm interested in I'm a spiritual person. I'm interested in politics and culture. My background is anthropology. So, with the class, we'll start off with a historical background, and then we'll bring it to the present. And it's been with the Trump era, we've had some really, and now Biden, but I was teaching it during the Trump era. So we had some really exciting things, like we were looking at the Constitution and the issue of impeachment. So we covered that in the class. And we also were looking at times when we had presidents, Rutherford B. Hayes, Woodrow Wilson, white supremacist presidents. And then we would look at some things historically, and then we would bring it up to the present with some of the things that President Trump was doing. And in the class, I'm very much open to free expression. I mean, I have family members that are Trump supporters. And so, because I know some people, I guess they've had issues with social media or talking to family about things, but I'm like, I said with my students, you're free to talk about whatever you want to talk about. And I felt like that because I try to have that open and welcoming environment, that helped them to feel comfortable with just speaking their piece. Some of them were telling me about some of their relatives. They're, oh my gosh, they're a Trump supporter, and how did I deal with that? And I'm like, and so, so I just had this course that I just very much had the desire to teach the course. And I had reached out to the head of the department a couple of years before I got the opportunity to teach. And then something happened with one of the professors, and they asked me if I could jump in. And I was like, it's like everything kind of has to line up like fate, because normally I would have been a litigator in court, but I had modified my schedule where I was available. And so I just jumped right in. And so I've been doing that ever since. And so today I'm going to talk about a call to action, activism and advocacy in the modern legal profession. And so I have that, you see, I have this like, I have my Robyn Legal website up here. I also have, I'm happy to move this over because I can't see, well, I can't move it, but I'm going to talk about just activism, advocacy, some of the things that I've done. And the call to action is because, I have these ideas. Sometimes I have ideas, and it's not always for me to do the ideas. It's some, Kim will tell you, I give ideas and suggestions. Sometimes I give ideas and it's for other people to run off and run with the ideas. Some of it is for me to do, but I am only one person. So when I talk about the call to action, what I'm talking about is like some issues. It's like I really want to inspire a movement and get other brothers and sisters in the law to be involved, because we have strength in numbers. So I'm going to just again start with the basics. Activism is a doctrine or practice that emphasizes direct, vigorous. I'm going to have to reduce the screen here because we're going to read the whole thing. Okay. A doctrine or practice that emphasizes direct, vigorous action, especially in support or opposition to one side of a controversial issue. Advocacy is the act or process of supporting a cause or proposal, the act of process of advocacy. So this is my firm, and I was born in Ann Arbor, Michigan, raised in Ypsilanti, and went to school in Ann Arbor, 12 years of Catholic school. My mom is a nurse, my dad is a lawyer, and so I was obviously influenced by both of them. My mom is very big on community service. Sometimes not always voluntary. I remember I was an athlete and I did a cross country meet and I ran 3 miles. And then after that, my mom was like, oh, well, we're going to the March of Dimes and we're going to do a 13-mile run walk. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know this, but I was like, okay, I was already hyped up on, from running. So she had us do March of Dimes, Golden Age games, things like that. And then my father was a lawyer. He had always wanted to be a lawyer. He hails from Benton Harbor, Michigan, and he grew up in a time where the only lawyer that he was exposed to was on TV. And so he just he was 8 years old. He decided he wanted to be a lawyer, and then he ultimately became a lawyer. He did criminal, and then he just was like, Perry Mason was the show that he was watching. I know some folks have said to me who've had similar experience of being the first, like my dad was the first to go to college in his family, and he was the first to become a lawyer. And so Perry Mason was a big influence on him. He always wanted to have his own firm, so he had that vision, and he made it manifest. And he went to Western, majored in political science, graduated in 2.5 years, and then got a master's in political science. Then he went to U of M, got a master's in education, and then he went to Detroit College of Law. I asked him, I said, well, why did you do 2.5 years of college? And he said, because he comes from a family of 16. Like my grandparents, they had 16 kids. They had the first 8 down south and the second 8 up north. And he said, well, my parents, my grandmother was a homemaker. My grandfather was a minister and worked in the factory. He had like 3 jobs. 16 kids, he's going to have to work. And so he said, well, he was one of the first recipients of the Upward Bound Scholarship. So he said, well, I didn't know if the money was going to run out. So I wanted to hurry up and get my education. So that's why I did it the way I did it. And then he wanted to go to U of M, but at the time he was married and had 3 kids, and they didn't have it where you could do night school. So that's why he chose Detroit College of Law, and he really loved that experience. And so for me, I was very much influenced by my family. At first, I thought I wanted to be a nurse, and then I walked past the morgue. My mom took us with her to work, and I was like feeling funny, and I'm squeamish about blood. So I was like, okay, nurse is not going to work. I've done dance, like my mom put me in ballet because I had scoliosis, like curvature of the spine. So she put me in ballet, African dance. We did plays, we did Congolese dance, and we did plays from 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And then I was exposed. Some of you, some of the younger folk may not know about the old dynasty. I know there's a new dynasty, but I saw Dynasty, and I was like, oh, I want to be an actress. And then again, my parents were just very much talking to me about the struggle, the experience of Black folk, and particularly we were hearing about the disproportionate number of Black men in the prison industrial complex. So I made the decision at 14. I said, hey, I can act in the courtroom to help liberate the brothers in the system. So that's what I did. I made that plan, and I just got on that path. And I started, we talk about, as I said, advocacy and activism. Like my dad, I have an older brother, and my dad wanted my brother to be the lawyer. And my brother is a musician. He's a rap artist. He's very talented. He's a computer techie person, had absolutely no interest in becoming a lawyer. But my dad was kind of like hesitant, like, oh, I'm the second child, the first girl, and he was kind of hesitant. So I kind of did a protest, like, no, I want to be a lawyer. So that's where my activism comes into play. And so I did start working with him in the summers when I was in high school. And so that's how I started working in the firm. And I worked in the firm, and I did everything, everything in the firm: receptionist, client intake, filing. I was just very high energy. So I did a lot. So then my dad and his law partner at the time, they are in DC, and I was 15 and I was in the 9th grade. And they were getting sworn in to be able to handle cases before the Supreme Court. And we were on a tour, they took us on a tour like of the Capitol and the Supreme Court. And we had Michigan Congressman Hertel. And my dad is saying, oh, well, ask him. He nudges me. He's like, well, ask him about the PAGE program. And I was like, what? And I was shy. I was just like, whatever, I'm not. And then my dad raises his hand and he's like, my daughter, she has a question. And so I was like, okay, what is the PAGE program? And so they tell me about the PAGE program, that it's something that's been in existence since the founding of the country, that they would have little page boys. Actually, it was traditionally boys that were messengers that would carry packages all over the Capitol. They'd have it at the White House and the US Capitol. And at the time, I'm in high school, I'm in a college prep school, and I was not really trying to have anybody mess with my schedule. I was an athlete too. So I was doing track and cross country. I tried the basketball, was not very, people assumed because I was Black and I was taller at the time that I knew how to play basketball, but I was more ballet. Like my dad, some of the kids' dads would play basketball with them. My dad was in the office, the law office. So that was my thing. And I did volleyball. So I was an athlete, but I didn't really, I was like, no, I'm not really, I'll do it in the summertime, because at the time they had the House program and the Senate program. Now they just have the Senate program because they had some freakiness with some of the Congress people messing with the pages. So they looked at my grades. They said, you have really good grades. You should come during the year. And I was, you could have the option of 6 months or a year. I was reticent, but I said, okay, I'll come. And I was nervous too, because they had all these rules for pages. You can't swing from the pipes. And I'm like, what is this? And I went, and we had a page dorm and we had a page school. You'd get up and go to page school, and you'd have 6 classes. And then in the afternoon, you go work in the US House. And it was an amazing experience. One of the big highlights is that I went to the Congressional Black Caucus. They have an annual breakfast. I was sitting there with Betty Shabazz, like Malcolm X's wife. I didn't even know it was her until after the fact. She was just so humble and such a beautiful person, beautiful spirit. You had all these folks, Jesse Jackson, Maya Angelou. I mean, just all these people that were there. And so I just had all this exposure. And I went to the page school. I had graduated from the program with honors. And then it was kind of, I don't know how to describe it. Like you go to DC, and then I came back to Michigan, and it was kind of like, you're like, oh, everything is so mundane here. It was an adjustment. And so I came back and graduated from high school. And then, I'm trying to figure out where I want to go to school. And I got into Dartmouth. I got into University of Chicago. I ultimately decided to go to Chicago because my mom, she's from the South Side of Chicago. She had wanted to go. At the time, they were not very big. I mean, they still need to work on that. They're on the South Side of Chicago, so they're surrounded. It's a Black neighborhood, but it's a predominantly white school, and that they were not admitting a lot of Black Americans. They would admit some folks from the Caribbean and from Africa, but they were not. When my mom was going to school, they were not very big on that. So I made that decision to go to University of Chicago, and I had a big debate about that, because I was looking at Dartmouth and I was looking at the classroom sizes, and University of Chicago and Dartmouth were very close, and Dartmouth was the Ivy League. And, but then I had hemmed and hawed over the decision. And then, but I, having gone there and then all the experiences that arose after that, I know that I made the right decision, and I loved it. I loved it. College was just amazing, and I keep up with my friends. And so then you have here, this is Sister Friends. My friends, you see Marcia and Joan, they're both Haitian. I'm not Haitian, I'm an honorary Haitian, but we were seeing on campus that we didn't have at Chicago any Black fraternities or sororities. And we were seeing that the other students were bonded, like the males were bonded with sports, and you had some you know, you had Asian students, Jewish students, other students were bonded or had groups. We did have the Organization of Black Students, so we were active with that, but we didn't really feel like there was a support network for Black women. So we created one, and it was awesome, Sister Friends. And we would have monthly meetings. We would have poetry slams, like a tea. We would have, we really wanted to mentor the new students coming in and make sure that they had all the supports academically, spiritually, therapy, whatever they needed to get the right supports to be successful. And so we did the Sister Friends, and I'm happy to say Marcia and Joan and I, we get together. We're still bonded, and we've talked about, you know, coming back to the school and doing some things. And we actually, you know, we talk about activism. They had the Million Man March, but we got together and we went to the Million Woman March. This was after we graduated. We did that. So that ties in with the concept of activism. So that's the article there that just talks about what we did with Sister Friends. And Marcia went off to become a doctor. She's a fertility doctor. Joan is a businesswoman. And so, yeah, so they're very much engaged. And then in the course of us with Sister Friends, I said we had teas. So you see here, Michelle Obama's on the left, and then you've got myself, the poet Derek Wolcott, then Marcia and Joan. And so that was really cool. And it was actually Marcia, like on campus, they had a program where you could, you know, you could learn how to be involved with community service, things of that nature. And Marcia nudges me and she's like, hey, Robyn, I know you want to be a lawyer. She's like, there's a lady over there. Her name is Michelle Obama. And she went to Harvard Law School. And I think you should talk to her. And I was kind of like, you know, again, I get in myself get kind of anxious, nervous. And then I told myself, whatever, get over it. And I went over there, I introduced myself, and talked to her. I met with her, and she mentored me. She helped me with my law school application. And so it was an amazing, it's just awesome. You know, she's there. She's like, my husband is teaching at the law school. So I went and I sat in on his class, and I was not able to take his class because I was graduating early and I was working on my honors thesis. And of course, my dad was like, oh, no, that's too much if you're trying to graduate. And my dad really had wanted me to graduate early because he was helping to pay for the undergrad. He said, for law school, you're on your own. And so, but I was there when Barack first ran for Senate. One of my friends was his campaign manager. So it was just really cool. Again, I talked at the outset about this decision about going to Dartmouth or Chicago. Had I not gone to Chicago, I would have never met up with Michelle and Barack when they were just regular people before they got rock star status. So we did that. And then, so I graduated college early with honors. I was on my way to the Peace Corps, and then my dad's all freaking me out. No, you can't do that. You need to go to law school. Affirmative action is going to be gone. You know, I'd done research on affirmative action. He's like, it's going to be gone. You need to go. And so he scared me. And so I go to U of M, and lo and behold, right at U of M, we're in the midst of the affirmative action battle. And, you know, it was crazy. We had like 27 African-Americans who had we either went to Black schools, white schools. We all worked very hard to be there. And we had to deal with, it's like so many different layers. You're in a predominantly white institution. You're in a law school that can be very intimidating. And then you've got the Supreme Court looking at your grades. So you got to stand up for your race. You got to be like an example. And then people were like, oh, well, they don't know it's who you are. They just have a number next to your grades. But I'm like, okay, but anybody knows me knows that I talk the way that I speak. So I don't even know. It was just crazy. So we had protests and rallies. But I was the political action chair for the BALSA and the NALSA, the Native American students, because my background's cultural anthropology. I had done my honors thesis on interrelations between Blacks and Native Americans in Florida in the 19th century. And so in my family, we have Native American ancestry. So when I'm at law school, I got involved with the Black group and the Native American group. In the Black group, they made me political action chair. And then my friends that are Native American said, hey, we want you to do the same thing for us. So I did that. And in the course of everything, I brought in a therapist. And I said, okay, to help us to cope with everything, the stress of being in law school, the scrutiny with the Supreme Court, all of that, affirmative action. And I said, my directive to the students was, and myself is like, we've got to focus on studying, doing well, graduating. We don't want to be like, because there's been times people protest, they protest themselves out of school. You know, you have to have a balance again between activism, advocacy. We're advocating for ourselves and other folks that will come behind us. But you have to have the balancing act. And to me, to think that we were looking at the prospect of affirmative action going away when in my family, in my lineage, you know, we come from slaves. There was, you know, in my class too, we talk about reparations. And I'm like, and if you're Native American and you have tribal recognition, you can get a full ride to go to U of M. And my friends had said, you should look into that. And I said, well, I'm African American. And I mean, I am Native American, but I was kind of like, well, I'm already, you know, but I since then, as I've done more research on it, I just feel, you know, it should be, if you're a descendant of slaves, you should be bare minimum. I know Georgetown has that. Some schools have that, but it's just, in general, education should be free. I just feel you go to Canada, you go to Cuba, you go to other places, it should, if you're willing to study hard, you should be able to go to college and not have to worry about debt. So I'm at University of Michigan, and I was actually got an award for the work that I did. So that was really excited. Again, I don't do what I do for awards, but it's always nice to get recognition. And so then I graduate from Michigan, and I decided to work with my dad, and I was working with him. He was kind of mother henning me. You know, we were working on a race discrimination case, and which was exciting. It was in Benton Harbor, Michigan. There were some Black employees that were fired. There were white employees that were allies that were fired. And I thought I was just going to be able to get up and go into court. And he was like, no, you're going to do research. And that started before I got licensed. And then even after I got licensed, he was still kind of mother henning me. And I was like, no, I became a lawyer to be in the courtroom. And so I started doing appointed cases. I got jealous of the public defender. So I actually went to Detroit and worked at LADA. And I did that. I thought that was going to be like my life's career. And if I survived a year, it was like an amazing experience, but it was really intense. I still do appointed criminal cases. And then in the course, after I left LADA, I worked with my ex-husband in a firm, and then I started working with Michigan Children's Law Center. So that's what got me into working with children as a lawyer guardian ad litem. And then that evolved into doing educational advocacy for children and trying to help stop them, you know, again, with advocacy from getting caught up in the school to prison pipeline, like helping them to get, if they were special ed, get assessed, get an individualized education plan or a behavioral intervention plan. So I did that, and the court really liked that process. And then we ended up losing funding. And so I was at the crossroads. So I basically decided to just come back into private practice full time. So that's what I'm doing. I'm doing criminal. I still do indigent defense. I do family, and I do educational advocacy. And of course, again, talking about advocacy, I do expungement workshops, and I connected with the late Isaac Robinson, and we talked about putting a letter together. And that's what you see here is this letter on behalf of KWAME Kilpatrick. So we wrote this letter to President Trump, even though, again, a lot of us are not necessarily weren't fans of Trump's, but we wrote the letter. I sent a message to the White House too, talking about not just KWAME, but the other brothers in the system that have been caught up, that are, you know, with the impaired sentencing, you know, crack cocaine versus powder and all of that. So we did that, and we do see he was released. And you see on there too, you see Erlene and Kim, who were present in this meeting, that they had signed on, and some other folks. So again, that was activism. Well, I would say activism and advocacy. And then with the insurrection that happened on January 6th, we got a call. I want to say, I don't know if, I think we got a call a call to action from our members. They were like, Robyn, we need to do something about this. So we wrote up this resolution. We sent it to Congresswoman Dingell, Senator Gary Peters, Senator Stabenow, and basically I wrote up the resolution, and we said something needs to happen. You know, I put in there in the email, it's not in the resolution, about, you know, they need to do something about Trump, impeach him, remove him, but this has got to stop. And So we've been following up with them about this issue because it's just, I don't know if anybody had been following it, we knew something was going to happen, but not what actually happened, not like the way that I thought something was going to happen on inauguration. And so, so this here is a resolution that our board put together. And, you know, we just want to make sure, again, I talked to students about the rules and the laws and accountability, and it's like, we need to have it across the board. I can't be in court with folks, mainly Black folks, some working class white folks, and they're held accountable for their actions. And then we have the president or other leaders around him that are doing stuff and they get away with it. That's just, the kids are looking at that like, this is a problem. So programs, I have programs that I do, how to navigate the public school system. And so for that, if any of you have any schools that might be interested, I can set that up. And I usually will put a panel together with teachers and educational advocates. Pathways to Law School, as Katie mentioned, that's one of my newest babies. I have babies that like ideas that come out. I have a couple programs in Washtenaw County that I'm setting up, but you know, for me, I'm in the Tri-County area, Wayne, Washtenaw, Oakland. So if you have a school that's interested, we'll get the school, I'll identify volunteers. And what we're going to do next week is we're going in, there's 5 of us, and we're going to talk to the kids in high school. I'm gearing it towards high school and college to talk about, you know, what is the path to law school? What inspired you to become a lawyer? And my rationale behind this is that, you know, only 5% of lawyers are Black. 85% of them are white males. And I want to see more women lawyers. I want to see more Black lawyers. I want to see more progressive lawyers, you know? And so I really feel that it makes a difference when these kids, you see, for me, I was exposed, my dad was a lawyer, and then I was exposed to a lot of things at a young age. If I feel like kids, if they're exposed to a lot of things, positive things, and get mentors, it can make a world of difference. So that's the newest baby. What to Do and Stop by the Police. That came out of frustration and anger about what happened to Trayvon Martin. So that's a program where I go into schools and colleges, and I'll partner with the police and a judge and you know, prosecutor, and we'll talk about tips on what to do and stop by the police. And then expungement forums. That is something I was recruited by Judge Deborah Thomas. She's the expungement queen. I call myself one of the expungement princesses. There's princes and princesses. And so we were doing workshops, going around the state, educating people about how to clear up their records. Last year that evolved. And what happened is that we connected with state reps and state senators that were in the process of changing the laws. And so now we just did one with Black women lawyers where we had some state reps and lawyers. So we did that. That was more Wayne County. I have one scheduled for March in Washtenaw County. And then I am looking to do one in Oakland County. So if any of you are interested or know folks that may be interested in helping to set that up, and it's virtual, of course, because we have a pandemic, then just let me know. And so I'm gonna stop the share. Yes, and see how we are on time.
Wonderful. We still have some time, and I would love to continue the conversation with any questions or just points of inspiration, motivation, thoughts, what we can do moving forward. Robyn, the way you describe your trajectory is incredible. I mean, you described some of the, I would call it like pipeline, right? The PAGE program and what got you introduced to this, having a role model. You described creating communities with the SISTAFRIENDS. I love that. And then advocating for each other and actually engaging political figures and leaders, being an ally for others. I mean, I think we can all be inspired by what you've done. And I would love to hear any questions for Robyn, or points from, you know, our members here today that you want to delve deeper into. Any questions? Judge Nance?
Just a comment. I'd like to volunteer myself to work with Robyn to establish a forum in Oakland County.
Okay.
So let's talk about that offline.
Yeah, for sure.
Wonderful. And whatever this committee can do to support that. Again, I can put it in minutes. We can announce it once you have it up and rolling, when you have dates. Judge Nance, if you're doing something with the schools, that was where I was putting my hands up. I think having conversation with kids and inspiring them and saying, look, I mean, personally, I wanted to be an artist. I was making documentaries in New York City, and I did a complete about face to say advocacy and advocating for others is how I want to use these storytelling skills, right? The painting a picture of a story. And so letting kids know that it's okay not to know, but put this on the radar, right? Put this out there as a possibility, I think is a really meaningful thing to do. So Judge Nance, Robyn, please.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. The superintendent of public schools is very closely connected with me. I know her well. She's a sorority sister. So I'd certainly like to speak with her about some kind of an online opportunity for Robyn to expose this idea to the students that right now are grappling with online study. And I don't know if they've had any seminars or presentations during COVID. So this is certainly an opportunity to try to get, I think, that was my first thought, get Robyn in front of the Southfield School Board or Southfield School students, at least here in Oakland County.
Yeah, for sure. And then I'm also, what I've been doing, I had some of my students that are in the process of applying to law school. So it's like, again, when I talk about the pipeline, you know, and if you guys know any kids that want to apply or help with applying to law school, I've been doing that as well. I have, some of my kids that are doing it. Other folks have sent kids from the community. I've been doing that I don't know, it should be in my bio. It's definitely in my resume. I've been tutoring kids, working with kids since college. I've been doing a lot of that, like tutoring elementary students. And then when I was in college and then in law school, I was tutoring students at Pat and Gill. And I just love working with kids. I'm like, I think I'm like a big kid myself. I have a nephew too, although he's 22. He's like, I'm not a child, but I'm like, you're still my child. So.
Robyn, as you're talking, and I know that we have a lot of representatives in this meeting who are at, firms doing diversity and inclusion programs, or other organizations that are committed to this. I guess I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for partnership there as well. I'm not sure, put that on the radar as, how can we involve firms who are committed to this and who maybe don't know or haven't created opportunities to really enhance the pipeline, because you may want to invite them to join the conversation or be engaged somehow. Greg, I see you joined as well. We did introductions in the beginning. I'd love for you to introduce yourself for those. I'm sure most everybody knows you, but if you have anything to contribute here about how maybe there's something on the state level that is doing pipeline programs or mentorship, I'd love to hear. And hi.
Hi.
Hello, Greg. I know Greg too. He's had me come in and talk to some kids before the pandemic.
That's exactly what I was going to chime in on. Robyn is just a fantastic volunteer and has done great things for us at the State Bar. For those of you I may not have met, the Director of Diversity at the State Bar. I wanted to chime in because Judge Nance mentioned the opportunity to work with schools. And for those of you that may not know, we have a Face of Justice program that we've operated over several years now, where we've brought students together to do what we call JET mentoring. We've had groups of 60 to 80 students at one point traipsing through 36th District Court for half a day and then getting mentored by people within the legal profession. And so, and Robyn was kind enough to join us on one of those opportunities to work on talking to police officers to provide that as part of the program. But I just wanted to offer that in this virtual space, we've been trying to figure out how we can be helpful with audiences of students that would be interested. On the volunteer side, we certainly will welcome anyone from this committee that might be interested, but our real challenge has been finding groups of students and working with the education community. So I would offer that anyone who has a connection within the education community that could benefit from this kind of a program, we could Robyn knows we'll drag her in if we can as well, anytime we can capture. her fantastic talents. But this is something that we've done for several years now. We're looking for an opportunity to do it again this year and really take advantage of this virtual space to produce an opportunity for mentoring. And it's a great pipeline opportunity. We've had fantastic participation over the years. It's just been challenging this year in this new environment. We know educators are super swamped and learning new things as well as teaching. And so that's been our challenge. We actually developed a survey, which Katie, I'll drop to you to give to our educators to let them know that we have this available and ask if there's a way that we might collaborate. So I just wanted to offer that up to this committee.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Greg. And I'm curious, for the directors of diversity or diversity and inclusion leaders at firms, do you have any programming going on right now for the pipeline? Are you guys reaching out into the community and doing mentorship, or is this something that you haven't developed, you might be interested in doing, and we should connect you as well?
This is Laurel. I had to unmute myself.
Oh, and you didn't get to do your introductions either. If you want to introduce yourself, I know that we were having problems with the audio earlier.
Yes, I was. I'm Laurel McGifford. I'm the Director of Diversity and Inclusion at Plunkett Cooney. Glad to be a part of this committee, and thank you so much, Robyn, for everything that you contributed today. Very, very helpful information. We are in the process of trying to collaborate with a couple of other firms in terms of some pipeline activities, and so to the extent that there's any opportunities or information that we could benefit from, I'd love to have that information.
Yeah, I would definitely say I would say as far as the expungement, where we are, when we do it, we do, like, we'll do a forum and then sometimes we'll do a clinic. So sometimes we are needing to have attorneys come to the clinics and meet with people. Now I guess it'll be virtual because until we can be in person, but meeting with people, we're doing an iChat and basically helping people to assess their eligibility. And so I've done some of those in Wayne and Washtenaw. Like, we'll do a training at first, if it's a Saturday, where we train the lawyers on what to look out for. And then we'll need lawyers to come in or virtually, I guess now, come in and meet with people, do an iChat. So it's like $10. So sometimes we'll want help with sponsoring to pay for the $10 for that. And then I know in Washtenaw, they have Michigan Works has funding where they will actually, they'll do a program like what we're doing, because I've participated, and then they'll help the people to fill out the applications. And then they will, on the date that they have court, they will get attorneys. They'll say, we're looking for some attorneys to volunteer on this date and time. And so I don't know if Oakland County is doing that, but I would suggest that, because that makes a big difference. I mean, Judge Thomas and I, we were showing people how to do it. We give them the application, how, if they couldn't afford an attorney, they could do it. But I don't know if any of you have looked at the new expungement laws. It's a lot more complicated. It's complicated for attorneys. So I'm definitely seeing a need for attorneys. Like, maybe if you're working at a firm and you want to do some pro bono work, maybe you'll take on, I know Erlene, who was here, she has said she would volunteer to take on some expungements for people. So there's definitely a need there.
Okay.
Wonderful. So I want to be conscious of the time. It's 1 o'clock. I think this was a wonderful conversation that I hope will prompt other conversations, it sounds like. And to wrap it up, I guess, our committee launched January of last year before the pandemic. We had, I think, close to 75 of you in a room in my firm, and pipeline programming, mentorship was part of that initiative, and we haven't done much in that. I'll be candid, but we are developing a more thorough plan right now for the OCBA. We're calling it a 5-year plan informally, but nothing's been presented to the board. If any of you want to be a part of creating these benchmarks that we want to try to hit in terms of programming, engagement, then I would love to learn from you, because right now there are just about 2 or 3 of us that are trying to put our heads together, and we haven't done this before, right? This is new territory. We're learning from other bar associations. Colorado Bar Association has a great one, or maybe it's Denver. So reach out to me if you want to be part of creating these benchmarks or initiatives that we want to kind of do in the next 5 years, some sooner than later, right? And look at the agenda too, because we have some links to awards. If you know people that would be appropriate for some of the OCBA awards, those nominations are due by March 15th. And I want members of our committee to be featured on there because you're all doing some amazing work. Best Lawyers, one to watch. Those votes are due April 16th. And we have some other resources as well. The ICL staff lawyer position is open. So I have a posting in there. ICL reached out to us and said, please, help us find somebody who might be interested. The staff lawyers help develop the content, the educational content that ICL publishes. And they have a really great team over there. Trying to think other things really quickly before we wrap up. We have a call for leadership. We are developing the team that will lead this committee next year under Christina Bilowis as chair. If you are interested, I would love for you to send me an email. And if you're not sending me an email and I think you're going to be appropriate and lead the charge, I'm going to be tapping you on the shoulder. So let me know if you're interested. I'd love to have that be a voluntary ask from you if you want it. Otherwise, we will see you next month. And I hope that you have a great day. Thank you all for being here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Thank you
Yes,
all.
thank you again, Robyn.